Good morning. It's great to be here, and a surprise to see some very familiar faces, some old familiar faces. So I'm not going to tell any stories, Sally. Sally lived down the hall, not across. I think across the way was the bathroom where I lived, on 3rd floor Gilmore. Right by the stairway, right? I remember. So many memories. So I'm Mimi, Miriam, Mim, Reverend Mother from my youth group kids. I think, Valerie, you said at one point, I don't know if it was supposed to be in that other space, that pre-talk, but do a little personal sharing as well. So as a first time here, I don't know if there's going to be a second time, or I babysat for Dick Rem's kids in Midland Park, New Jersey. Long time ago. So I've had a connection with Dick Rem and all of those wonderful years of the 90s that have shaped me as well. So I'm familiar with some of the history of this community. And so I understand I'm the teacher today. I don't see myself as a teacher as one who has answers. I think of the teacher as you ask them a question and they have the answer. So I am more of the learner with you and asking questions rather than conveying a whole bunch of good information. You have written before you this poem by Gloria Anzaldúa. I don't even know how to say her name. Anzaldúa. And because it's got Spanish and I'm not a Spanish speaker, I don't even venture to mispronounce what's in there. But I hope you take the occasion to read what it means to live in the borderlands. She's a poet, and as you can see here, poet, queer writer, feminist, theorist. A powerful thing is I think about margins, and so in doing a little bit of sharing of who I am and some of my experience, looking at life, my own life as I come to this period of my life, you look back and you think about what has shaped you. And so the notion of margins came up for me. So I want to start with a little bit of another piece of writing. It's about the margin called The Ditch. Slipping on fresh snowfall, he landed in the ditch, a receptacle for many an accident. Dozing, sliding, inattentive, people, cars, and ditches collide. It's the depository of road refuse, rain runoff, roadkill, fast food remnants, beer cans. It's the roadside dumpster stuck in the ditch. Scum, waste, a place for grace? Perhaps with a deeper way of seeing, the ditch becomes a conduit for life. For some, a stinky drainage trough. For others, an incubator of vitality and fragrant beauty. Look again. Without a sideway glance, there, a profusion of life refuses to be cast as a mere garbage dump. In the margins, the undesirable gives way to a reservoir of all things living. Cattail, loosestrife, willows, wild phlox, chicory, Queen Anne's lace, only junk weed, some say. But under the woodland shade, fern by many a name, frogs, toads, snakes, turtles, small creatures alert to predators in flight, a chorus of songbirds in hiding, and there, amid the hues of green, lavender, purple, and white, nestled among the secret pathways therein, protrudes the stately cardinal flower, scarlet spikes, royal scepters, precious, majestic, adorning, overlooked, waving a blessing over the ditch. What is seen along the way amidst the margins of the journey? How is it that one doesn't see when eyes are wide open? What catches awareness along the fringes, the edges of disregard? Ugliness to avoid, hidden beauty, degradation, life, something to be learned. Look again. Paradox in the ditch. I know going down River Road towards my house, there are some very deep ditches for that drainage. And if you drive there in September, the ditch is gorgeous in what's coming up out of it. Nature has become a primary wisdom teacher for me. Last Tuesday, anybody at Meyer Garden last Tuesday evening? Robin Wall Kimmerer was the guest lecturer there. I wasn't there either, but it was live streamed, and you can go and hear it again. She's a mother, a botany professor of environmental and forest biology, director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment at the State University of New York. And she's an enrolled member and citizen of the Potawatomi Nation, author of Braiding Sweetgrass. She wrote in that book, "I was raised by a strawberry field. The field was what nurtured and taught her about life." When she first came to the academic institution, college, to learn about her nurturers and teachers and the wonder of the natural world, she discovered that the scientific world taught about plants. She was interested in learning from the plants as her teachers, beyond the naming and the dissecting and the classifying. Robin Wall Kimmerer, as a First Nations people, a woman in the science field, and in academia, that responds to all of these plant things as things or it. She refers to them as kin. So Robin knows well of life in a sort of marginal existence as a native person. So, as I said, when I look at my life experience, because you start to review life when you get to this kind of retirement age, what is it worth? What has it been all about? I've recognized how much of my life experience has been pretty much the mainstream experience of white, middle-class, privileged, educated America. And I've been drawn to the margins. There's something in the margins of life that gets my attention, and I have to listen to that. So perhaps for many of you, as I look across here, the 60s were the formative years of my growing up. How could I not be shaped by the 60s and what was going on in the 60s? I remember as a young child, my parents took a group of high schoolers on a mission trip to Bruton, Alabama, to Southern Normal School, and I was a grade schooler. And the impression there, Bruton, this was a school that the Reformed Church operated because there wasn't public school of substance for African American kids. So we went there with these kids from Harlem and from the suburbs of Wyckoff, New Jersey, and went to Bruton, Alabama. And it was hot and muggy and buggy. And as a little kid, I was so excited when they said we're going to go swimming at the local pool today. Okay, so it was a great big ploy by the adults because all the white kids get on the bus and all the black kids say, have a good time. Oh, shoot. And we had to get off the bus and have this great big conversation about injustice. And so we all get on the bus again with the black kids and we go down to the Gulf. And then we swim where we can all swim together. Whew. That had a big impact on me. And I learned from the margins there about peace and about justice. In seminary years, I learned about sexism and what it meant to be in a denomination that didn't have a lot of women in ministry, and feeling that marginalized piece of where we could have a voice. After seminary, choosing to go to Muskegon Heights rather than a suburban church out east, the suburban church would have been safe, economically advantageous to my husband and I, but there was something about the margins in Muskegon Heights that, as one of our mentors says, that's the one that puts a twinkle in your eye. Why aren't you going there? And so we did. And in Muskegon Heights, for all of our ministry, we learned from the poor and the disadvantaged. For about 22 years, I've been able to be a volunteer at Camp Sunshine. Anybody familiar with Camp Sunshine? Thanks, Camp Sunshine. Camp for developmentally challenged persons, or as we start to say, other abled individuals, adults. I think it's from about 16 years old, and we've got some campers who are approaching 60, and we have to tell them you have to graduate, and that's pretty hard to do. They have taught me about the pain of exclusion, and they have taught me about love, and they have taught me about humility when they have to ask for help. I can't do that. They have taught me from the margins. Some years ago, I was invited to be on the board of Room for All, which in the Reformed Church is a group and a movement of people working and advocating for the full inclusion of LGBTQIA folks. And to be part of that board and to learn how to be an advocate and an ally, they taught me much. Again, about some peace, about some justice, about having a voice, about living on the margins. And then, okay, where is Jeff? There he is. I think about life at work, some work at Life Circles with frail elderly folks who find themselves on the margin of health and socially in many different ways, who have been kind of pushed to the side. And I think maybe as we all age, we might find ourselves in that space as well, that, okay, do I still have anything to give to the world? Is anybody still listening to my voice? And so for those people, I learned about the aging and feeling useless. And what do we still have to offer? And to invite them to tell their story and to still have wisdom to share and laughter. Where were you in November of 2016? Do you remember November, election day, 2016? I was in Jerusalem and going to visit the West Bank. And there I saw tear gas canisters collected by Palestinian children. And they would try to make some artwork out of that and hang by their house. And there I learned about being faithful and finding a way to resist without causing a whole lot of destruction or violence in return. And I think one of the words that we used earlier this morning was finding from the margin resilience, learning resilience. How do we keep on going in spite of? So I've noticed the edges and how I've been drawn there. And I can't really say that I've been drawn there because I'm going to change it and make a difference. But I think as I review my life, I'm drawn to the margins because I recognize I need to learn something. I think today about all of the news reports, and I don't think I have to list the places and the needs around the world where there are suffering and there are those who are powerless, those who feel marginalized, those who are put into the margin. And as nature itself is my teacher, I have to say, yes, the whole creation is groaning. Even our natural world is marginalized in many ways for the profit. Not the biblical profit, but for the economic profit. So what can the margins teach us? What do the margins teach you? And how I value what I can learn. I don't always think that the margins is a good place. Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes we've learned it's a place of transition. Sometimes that transition goes from something good to something bad or something old to something new. What do we learn from the margins? What do I learn as somebody who's had the education, has economic benefit, has a social life and community, and look here, I can be here free. So I want to help so much those people. Or is it me too? How can others who are on the margin teach me? Perhaps that is a starting point, is that we're all learners together. We might recognize all of the teachers who surround us from margins and the marginalized. Perhaps we can become recipients of the wisdom from the edge, or as Robin Wall Kimmerer talks about reciprocity. Reciprocity, not only from the plant life that she studies, but the reciprocity between peoples who have been disengaged from one another in so many different ways. Perhaps the margins might teach us about beauty, even in the ditch, or love and birth, despite war. That life finds a way, even in the midst of destruction. It might teach us enough. What is enough when there is little to share? The margins might teach us about not giving up when all seems hopeless. It might teach us the courage to speak truth that enables the reconciling, that requires hard work, that we are all connected to one another, and that we're all connected to all things. Or as Robin Wall Kimmerer says, our kin. all kin. So today I'm not here to be a teacher, only to ask more questions, a learner, and inviting you to be a learner with me. Perhaps a mainstreamer, sometimes experiencing the margins, but I'd like to be maybe a bridge maker, or might become a crossroads. The poet Gloria says, to survive the borderlands, one must live without borders and become a crossroads. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having me this morning.